I have a question from Adam Q9. He asked three good tips for financial independence.
Well, the first and foremost, pay yourself first. So that means whatever you make, if you say you make 5 grand a month, that's your take home pay from whatever it is that you do, whether it's a business or your job. 20% comes off the top. So that means you get 5 grand, $1,000 gets put away no matter what. And so whether that's putting it away to invest in real estate or in stocks or your 401k or your Roth IRA or whatever it happens to be. Me personally, I like to invest in stocks and companies where I believe in the product or the service, the CEO, usually. So my portfolio is heavily invested in people I believe in, their products that line up with what I talk about in mastering yourself. And so no matter what happens, it's you can't touch that money. That's your principal. That's what wealthy people do. They put that money away and they never ever touch their principal. They don't spend it. It's not money for emergencies. It's you constantly put it away. And the nice thing is over the decades, as you get compounding interest and returns and you reinvest your dividends, what wealthy people do is instead of selling the stock, then you got to pay the taxes on your gain. You can take a loan out against that stock, a margin type loan, and then you can use the proceeds to buy a house or a car or whatever. And since it's borrowed money, you don't pay any income taxes on it. And so that's typical. A lot of wealthy people put their money in trust. So first and foremost, pay yourself first. And so if you're not good at picking stocks, then as Daddy Warren Buffett says, well, the best thing for you to do would be to take the money that you do get, your 20%, and put it in some kind of like index fund tied to the S&P 500, because when you look at those returns and then the dividends pay out typically every quarter on stocks. And so when those dividends get paid out on most of your stocks, you're going to be able to select in your, whether it's E-Trade or Schwab or whatever trading platform you use, you can turn on yes for reinvest dividends. And so when the dividend gets paid, it automatically purchases more shares with that money. And so it continues to grow. And then you continue to put your 20% away. So if you net 5 grand a month, 20% goes to your retirement. You can't touch it for any reason. And the other 4,000 that's left, you can use that to pay your rent, your car payment, your food, travel, buy your Birkin bags or whatever it happens to be. And the second thing that's most important is your revenue must always exceed your expenses. Never spend more than you make. Because if you do that, eventually you'll go bankrupt and you'll run out of money. And the one thing you can't get back is time. And so that's why, like, I'm on all these guys constantly about paying yourself first and checking in to see if they're doing it. You've been paying yourself first?
Yeah.
20%? Every month? No, it's figures. Caroline likes shopping too much. Because time is going to pass and you're always going to get older. And when you do that, because it really 10, 15, 20, 30 years is where the compounding effect really adds up. And like I remember seeing a video with Warren Buffett talking about how he didn't even become a billionaire until he was like 55, 56 years old. And he started investing when I think he was like 12. I think that's when he bought his first stock. And so it took him 55, 56 years before he became a billionaire. And now he's in his, I think, late 80s, and he's worth over 100 billion. And so you look at that, and it took basically 56 years to get to his first billion. And then in the same amount of time, that first million is now over 100 million. And so it's the compounding effect in the later years. So that's why, especially you guys, when you're young in your 20s, your early 30s, you got to put that away because the time is going to pass. And you want to get to a point in life where your interest income, whether it's dividend stocks or what have you, it is enough money that where you can decide, I don't want to work anymore. I'm just going to live off of my interests. So pay yourself first. Your revenue must always exceed your expenses. And don't be using credit cards to buy purses and other crap. Because especially now, I mean, if when people look at their interest rate on, like, say you buy a $3,000 purse and you're paying 24, 25% interest on that, I mean, just that's a lot. So what ends up happening, your
Yeah.
$3,000 bag, if you just pay the minimum payment, it ends up costing you $4 or $5,000 if you don't pay it off just because of the interest. And so it compounds. So they charge you 24, 25, 27%. I've seen some people that have like as high as 30, 34% in some cases on their credit cards. And so you put a few $1,000s on it, and if you leave it on there for several years, that's a bad compounding. And so, like what I did in my 20s when I got into real estate, I borrowed 50 grand on my credit cards, but I was putting that in the real estate to flip properties. I wasn't spending it. I wasn't going on vacations and stuff like that. And so you should never use debt to buy stuff, to finance retail things or whatever. You should only use it to, like in my case, I was investing in real estate, and so I was able. What I was doing was I take a cash advance against a credit card, and a lot of those would have like, hey, 0% interest, no transfer fees or nothing. And so they would say no interest for like 6 months. Well, in month 5, I would have a different card, and then I would just transfer the balance from one to another, like it was Home Depot, or I might have paid a contractor with a card or whatever. And so when the properties would sell, I would just pay it off, and so I would move the money around and not pay any fees or any interest because they would have those special deals. And so in a time like that, you can use debt smartly because again, you're not pissing it away. You're using money to make money. And so those would be my three things. Pay yourself first. Revenue must exceed your expenses. Don't finance bullshit purchases on credit cards because the interest rate it'll swamp you.
You only want to buy stuff on credit cards if you already have the cash to pay for it.
Yeah. And so when also like a time like now where the market is going down because the money supply is contracting, another thing that Buffett says is invest in energy companies or companies that mine minerals like nickel or iron or whatever happens to be, because those are the kinds of things that we're always pulling out of the ground. So even when the economy goes the other way, we still need iron, we still need nickel, we still need all these different metals, we still need gas, oil, coal, all those things. And so when the market is going down, because a lot of those stocks, energy stocks, different minerals and stuff like that, the stock price doesn't really do anything, but it pays a real high dividend, some close to like 20% annually. And so you get money, you buy income. So in other words, your 20% of say $5,000 a month is $1,000. If you're a guy that trades your own stocks, then if the market is just slowly going down like it has been the last few years because the money supply in the economy is contracting, you look at the different energy stocks, the price doesn't really go anywhere, but it pays a real high dividend because it's a very profitable business. People bitch about the 1% or whatever, or they bitch about Apple, or they're doing stock buybacks. It's like, well, buy stock in that company. Buy stock in the energy company. If you're paying they pay 17, 18% per year. So you get money and then you buy income with it. And then when the dividend pays out, you buy more of the shares. And what's nice about those stocks is because they pay such a high dividend, the stock price doesn't really go anywhere. So even 5 years from now, the stock price is kind of be in the same place. So it's always costs about the same to buy more income. And over the decades, that money compounds. And 20 years or so, you get several $1,000,000 in there. It's paying 17, 18% per year. You're making multiple 6 figures a year just in the interest.
Yeah.
And you can live off that. You can pay your mortgage, you can pay your car payment, you can travel, you can live a really great life if you discipline yourself not to piss your money away and always. So no matter what you make, whether you make $5,000 a month or $50,000 a month, you always put your 20% away. It's got to happen. Unless you want to be bagging groceries when you're in your 80s.
Well, hell yeah.
Jade will be signing up for that.